Last summer, my 41-year-old husband befriended a woman who was 33 years old on Instagram who he recognized from the gym. They started chatting and eventually working out together. He mentioned her casually in passing one day, saying something along the lines of, "There's a woman at the gym who's been chatting with me. I think you'd like her. You have a lot in common. I'm going to try to set something up with her and her husband." He's an introvert. And I thought, okay, I'll believe it when I see it. I didn't hear anything else about her for several months. He works remotely, and I work in the office several days a week. One day, I had a doctor's appointment or something, and mentioned that I'd be working from home the next day. He says at dinner, "Oh, remember that woman I mentioned a while back? She and I are going out to lunch tomorrow, but we have a couple's date planned in 2 weeks." I obviously told him I was not okay with this. He agreed not to go out to lunch with her, but now I have a bunch of questions. He tells me they have all these weird things in common, like so much so that it feels like more than coincidence, and says she looked it up and thinks they're twin flames, that her husband had expressed concerns with their friendship, and putting it in the context of twin flames made him okay with it. So he thought it would help me too, since I also have guy friends, and maybe one of them is a twin flame to me. He said when he looked it up, it didn't mean soulmate, but just someone who is a catalyst for growth and change in life. I asked a lot of questions like if he had her number. He said no. If they talk outside the gym, he said yes, via social media. Why I hadn't heard anything about this woman for the 4 months he was building this twin flame connection. He didn't realize I needed to know. Is he attracted to her? No, he doesn't find her attractive. I had a lot of concerns, but he doesn't have a lot of friends, is very introverted and a little socially awkward. So I was willing to give him some grace here, so I told him he needed boundaries with her and to be open and honest with me. Over the next 2 weeks, I learned a lot of things about this relationship that concern me. Lots of lies of omission. She's very much his type physically, and says neither of them are stupid enough to act on anything. They work out together at different gyms. She's bringing Higa, deep conversation card games, to the gym to better get to know him, texting him good morning at 4 a.m. They work out together at 4:30. The messages aren't confirming he's still going to the gym or anything, just good morning sensei or something similar, giving him random gifts. Nothing major, just first aid kits and stuff. Allegedly, he's helping her with nutrition and workouts because she wants to do bodybuilding competitions. At this point, we are fighting every day about this relationship. We go on the double date. On the way, she texts him because we're running late, and that's how I learn he does in fact have her number. I meet her and her husband and learn that she's 33, doesn't work, and they don't have kids. They seem cool, but I still don't like the situation and the lies. We continue fighting every day because I feel her behavior is girlfriendish, and he's not shutting it down or putting up boundaries. After 6 weeks of fighting every day, and me crying every day, I check his email and find an email he wrote to himself the day before he told me about the lunch date. It's a list of questions/comments, asking if she's dreamed about him and whether the dreams were good or bad, asking to know about her childhood, her siblings, her clothing and shoe sizes. Apologizes, explains, trying to screenshot a message she had sent him on Vanishing Messenger. Says he missed her immensely, but didn't feel like he could say it over the phone, etc. At this point, I decided it was an emotional affair and I was done. I didn't even argue with him, but he cried, told me he had recognized the relationship was becoming a problem and had planned to end it, but she beat him to it. Her husband told her he was uncomfortable with some of the obsessive behaviors he was seeing, and told her he wasn't comfortable with their friendship, never would be, and issued an ultimatum, so she ended it. We have young children, so I decided to forgive him since it was over. I made him block her number and social media, and he promised to go completely no contact with her and switch gyms. I compromised when he suggested just going to a different location in the gym's franchise. I was dumb here because I knew this was a location they had previously gone to together, but I figured her spouse would keep her in check. We started marriage counseling the week after Thanksgiving. We were supposed to be working on rebuilding the trust and fixing whatever issues made him feel like he needed this woman in his life, no matter how much it hurt me. Fast forward to January, he tells me he went to the old location a couple of times between Christmas and New Year's, and he ran into them. He mentioned that he was working out at the other location when they asked where he'd been. I was pissed that he told me about this interaction 3 weeks after it happened, but pleased he was being honest with me. A week or so later, he tells me she showed up at the other location. I told him they weren't to speak or rekindle their friendship. He promised me it would be done, and it needed to stay that way. He said okay, and he wouldn't talk to her. At some point in January, he started refusing to go to marriage counseling and started putting off all the things we were doing to work on our marriage. He kept saying he was tired because our youngest wasn't sleeping well, and can we do it next week? Around late February or March, he starts sleeping in the bed with our youngest to help us all get more sleep. I didn't agree with the approach, but we were tired. I'm still suspicious and searching his phone, emails, etc. every chance I get. I'm not finding much aside from a few weird web searches, which he deleted from his browser history a few days later. Things like synonyms for a beautiful woman, different ways to say good morning, beautiful, etc. He had started leaving me little notes in my car, and I hoped it was related to that. But I also thought it might be a crossword puzzle he was stuck on. Since he swore up and down he wasn't talking to her and wouldn't do that to me. He'd learned his lesson. At this point, my best friend convinces me he had been a socially awkward idiot. And since my snooping hadn't turned up anything, I either needed to forgive him and stop snooping or leave. So I stopped snooping. Then, a week later, my youngest comes down the hall to me after bedtime. I walk him back to his room and notice my husband snoring. I also notice his phone is lit up with a video or movie playing and isn't on the charger. So I pick up his phone and go to put it on the charger when I see the video is playing on half the screen. And under the video is a conversation he's having with her. What's left of the conversation starts with him saying, "I smell you," which she responded with either a smiling face or a heart. He then sent her an Instagram post about how his zodiac sign likes to go down on women and highlighted a comment about wanting to do it for his own pleasure. We've been together 14 years, and I count on one hand with fingers to spare the number of times it's happened in our relationship. So I pull out my phone and take a video of the conversation before it vanishes. I take a video of the conversation and send it to her husband on Instagram. I text my husband that he's a lying piece of shoot and we're done. He responds, "Can you not? Or at least wait until the kids are out of the house." Our kids are young. That ask means I'm stuck miserable and married to him for at least 14 more years. I tell him he's a jerk. He and I talked the next day, and I learned that after seeing him in the gym in December, she reached out to him on MyFitnessPal after discovering she was blocked everywhere else and started going to the gym he was at 2 days a week, every week. They would meet in the parking lot, hug each other, talk about their workouts and stuff, and then go into the gym, work out, and not talk, which my husband felt made his comments about not talking to her in the gym not a lie. After she reached out on MyFitnessPal, he initially ignored her message. She followed up claiming she was depressed and losing the will to live or something without him. He then told her to talk to her husband and see if he could help her. She persisted, and eventually he agreed that he missed her, and it was unfair that their spouses were dictating their friendships. So they resumed chatting on Instagram, vanishing Messenger. He would unblock her, chat with her, then reblock her. So when I checked his phone, she'd appeared blocked and like they weren't talking. Her husband told me this. Let's say I found the message on Monday night. Tuesday, he hid from me, but went to lunch with her at her favorite restaurant because he didn't want to be found. Wednesday, we talked, read. I yelled and lost my shoot at him. Thursday and Friday, I had a business trip. Apparently, they worked out together on Thursday. She cried on his shoulder, and Friday they went to lunch at his favorite restaurant. On Saturday, they met at Starbucks, where she tells him that her husband has requested they take a break for 2 weeks to work on their marriage. At this point, I have a meeting scheduled with a divorce attorney because he has shown me where his priorities are. He comes back from that Starbucks meeting pissed. My husband had told me he was going to meet her, and in frustration, I messaged her husband like, "Damn, they just can't stay away from each other, can they?" Her husband interpreted that as my husband continuing to lie to me and called her fussing. She put him on speaker, and my husband was mad that her husband had called him a liar. He hadn't been mad that I called him a pathological liar and every other term there is for a lying, cheating bastard. But he was livid that they thought he was a liar. He wanted me to call her husband, and explained that I did know in advance, and this time, he had been honest with me. I obviously refused because I didn't give a frick what they thought of him or us. That made him madder. I have my thoughts on why he was so mad, probably the same thing you're thinking. I learned from her husband that she's polyamorous, which my husband knew all along. And her husband is allegedly coming to terms with being polyamorous. That my husband had actually gone out to lunch with this woman before the outing I vetoed. They've had conversations which she initiated about favorite intimacy positions, likes and dislikes in bed, etc. She allegedly tried to convince my husband to go to New York City with her to a bodybuilding show, which he said no to, primarily in my opinion, because it wasn't something he could easily lie about. I retained a divorce attorney, we argue. He mostly insists I'm being controlling, and I need to be more understanding and accept this friendship. After a week, he finally starts apologizing, saying he wants to fix us. And can I find us a new marriage counselor? No, I cannot. He proceeds to keep telling me I'm being hasty, and I need to give us time to fix this because change won't happen overnight. 2 of my friends convinced me that our problems are fixable. We just both have to want to work on it. I'm still living in the house, but we sleep in different rooms because my name isn't on the mortgage. And a few months prior, he stopped paying my credit card bill without telling me and tanked my credit score from 800 to 580. Since I can't comfortably move out right now, and the state requires a few months of separation before they will even process a divorce, I tell him he has until the ink dries to convince me he's not the callous jerk he's been showing himself to be. I'm waiting until the end of the separation period to file. We've been separated since the end of April when I saw the texts. After weeks of arguing and me telling him there's no future for us with her in his life, he finally blocked her everywhere and switched gyms entirely. And other very small changes, we have not seen a marriage counselor, nor has he seen a therapist. I'm planning to move out as soon as I can fix my credit score and find a place to rent in our neighborhood so the kids' lives aren't too disrupted. The longer this goes on, the more it feels like too little too late. Overall, I don't feel like he loves me because he chose her every chance he got. It wasn't until her husband reined her back in that suddenly he cared about my pain, is sorry for the hurt he caused, and values our marriage. He went on dates with her after he got caught, instead of ending it with her and trying to work it out with me. I have had to cry and scream for every change he's made, and he's only done exactly what I argued about. It hurts, and I deserve better. I hate what this is going to do to our kids, but I can't stay where I'm not valued. Husband claims I'm blowing it out of proportion. It's an innocent friendship. It was never intimacy. The intimacy conversations they had were just talking. He's claiming the week of dates was a mental break, where he didn't know what else to do or who else to talk to. That I was nagging, overly critical, and controlling where she wasn't. She was his escape, and that's why he felt the friendship was so important. He thinks we can work through this. I don't think we can. He's shoot all over every chance I gave him to be honest and to prioritize our relationship. He ignored all my warnings and requests for guardrails on that relationship to stop us from getting here. And I don't trust him at all. So I guess I'm looking for different perspectives. Is this something that we can come back from, or are we dead in the water? If you made it this far, thanks for reading. To add, the friends who said it was fixable said so the first week after I found the text. As I've learned more, they've come to agree that he's not invested enough to truly make this fixable. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, start dating. Even if you're actually not going out with other guys, get yourself dolled up all fancy and tell him you've got plans for the evening, so he's in charge of the kids. Go out with friends or just treat yourself. Come home late at night or sometime the next morning, laughing out loud. Comment 2, you were the only one fighting for this marriage to work. He gaslit you and never took responsibility for anything. There is no other perspective here. There is no shame in leaving him. Your kids need to see you treated with respect and be in a healthy relationship. This isn't it. Now for the update. Thanks for reading my last post. So, after all that, things took a turn I didn't see coming. 3 days ago, I was at work when I got a call from my husband. He sounded panicked and asked if I could come home immediately. I thought something had happened to one of the kids, so I rushed back. When I got there, he was sitting on the couch, looking more distressed than I'd ever seen him. He told me he had something important to share, something that might change everything. He started by saying he had been doing a lot of thinking and realized he had been lying to himself and to me. He admitted that his relationship with the woman from the gym was more than just a friendship. He confessed that he had developed feelings for her, and that's why he had been so defensive and secretive. He said he was scared to admit it because he didn't want to lose me or the kids, but he couldn't keep lying anymore. This was a huge revelation, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and a strange sense of relief that he was finally being honest. I asked him why he was telling me this now, and he said something happened that made him see things differently. Apparently, the woman's husband had found out about their continued contact and confronted her. They had a massive argument, and she ended up leaving him. She called my husband in tears, saying she didn't know what to do. My husband said that hearing her so upset made him realize the gravity of what they were doing and how it was affecting everyone involved. He said he felt responsible for the mess and couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. This revelation led to a long, emotional conversation between us. I asked him if he still wanted to be with me or if he wanted to be with her. He said he didn't know, which was heartbreaking to hear. He said he needed time to figure things out, but he wanted to be honest with me about where he stood. I told him I appreciated his honesty, but I couldn't keep living in this limbo. I needed to know if he was committed to fixing our marriage or if he was going to continue this emotional affair. The next day, we had another long talk. He said he had been thinking a lot about our marriage and realized he had been taking me for granted. He admitted that he had been using his relationship with the woman as an escape from the problems in our marriage, but he now saw that it was a cowardly way to deal with things. He said he wanted to try to fix things between us, but he understood if I couldn't forgive him. I told him that I needed to see real change, not just words. I needed him to go to therapy, both individual and couples, and to cut off all contact with the woman for good. He agreed and said he would do whatever it takes to make things right. He even suggested that we take a break from each other to give us both some space to think. I agreed, and we decided that he would move out for a while. The day after that, he packed a bag and went to stay with a friend. It was hard to see him go, but I knew it was necessary. I needed time to process everything and figure out what I wanted. I spent the day with the kids, trying to keep things as normal as possible for them. That night, after the kids were in bed, I sat down and thought about everything that had happened. I realized that I had been so focused on his betrayal that I hadn't taken the time to think about what I wanted for myself. I thought about our marriage and all the good times we had shared. I thought about the kids and how much they loved their dad. I thought about the future and what it would look like if we stayed together or if we went our separate ways. It was a lot to take in, and I felt overwhelmed. The next day, I decided to reach out to a therapist for myself. I needed someone to talk to, someone who could help me sort through my feelings and figure out what I wanted. I also called my best friend and told her everything that had happened. She was supportive and offered to help with the kids so I could have some time to myself. In the meantime, my husband called to check in. He said he had made an appointment with a therapist and was committed to doing the work to fix our marriage. He sounded sincere, but I knew it would take more than just words to rebuild the trust that had been broken. As I sit here writing this, I'm still not sure what the future holds. I know that I need to take things one day at a time and focus on what's best for me and the kids. I'm hopeful that therapy will help me gain some clarity and make the right decision for my family. Thank you for reading. Aita for telling my husband. His greasy hair is ruining our marriage. We've been high school sweethearts, did long distance, moved out, had pets, got married, bought a house, the whole shebang. There was a time I was madly in love with this guy and couldn't think of how I'd be otherwise. Well, during Infection 19, my husband found out he has curly hair. It's actually a ball of matted fluff with some wave to it. But sure, it was news to us. So we grew it out, tried curly products and all that, and I encouraged it. But now it's this greasy mop that sits atop his head. Mind you, his hygiene is rough too. We recently had to have a talk about showering more than once a week, which he complied with for about that week. I, along with his family and my mom, have gently told him it looks horrid. Think Cynthia from Rugrats or Rick from Rick and Morty. And to consider at least a trim. It honestly smells bad too. And it pisses me off every time it gets on me. Now he has me putting clips in it, so I have to rummage through the grease to pull it out of his face. The last few months, I've become less and less attracted to him and started noticing other things that I can't seem to unnotice, that have always been there, but now I can't get past like before. Like his nasty butt, grown-out toenails with gunk under them. It's apparently my duty to cut it. He's waiting on me to trim his toes, or that he's been dieting to lose weight. And now he looks like a fragile, sick man. He's healthy, but loves the frail look. On top of all the physical stuff, there's the usual mental stuff like not initiating or planning dates. And taking him anywhere means dragging him or giving him a pep talk beforehand to not ruin my day. He needs to be told everything that needs to get done around the house. Won't listen when I approach him with these things. Or will work on it for about a day or a few and then revert back. I get that it's pretty dramatic, but it's not just the hair. I do think it led me to being grossed out enough to take a step back and assess the situation. Now it feels like I'm older and know what I want in a man, which is a spontaneous, high-energy, social butterfly, healthy, gym-loving dude type. But I went with the complete opposite because I was young and in love. And he's genuinely a good dude, just not what I want in a man at this phase in life anymore. On a day-to-day basis, I keep it calm and mellow and try to get through it without losing my cool. But some days I just can't stand looking at that hair and everything else that comes with it. And it pisses me off. I'm sure to him it seems like I'm bipolar or mad at nothing. But it feels like I'm mad at everything all at once if the wind blows wrong. Is this normal? I've been exposed to couples that stay together, but seem like they've just gotten worn down from each other my whole life. I don't want that. Is there any way to fix it since talking to him doesn't work? He's a great dude in many departments, better than most. But at the very least, I just want him to grow up and show his full potential. I get that the hair makes him happy, but come on. It's not just about the hair. To add, hi, there's lots of traction here. Lots to think about too. I guess my main question here is, how do I communicate these issues with someone who is very set in their ways and not the best at receiving feedback? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, you sound like me. Hello, me from 2 years ago. I was with my ex-husband from 15 to 25. He was almost identical to you. Greasy, wouldn't brush his teeth to the point they were rotting, and his grandma had to pay to get them replaced. He wouldn't clean, so I would get overwhelmed trying to keep up on it. No dates, no intimacy, nothing. I loved him so much, and he was my best friend. But that only goes so far. I finally realized the same thing you did. I told him I wanted a divorce over and over, and he wouldn't listen to me. Eventually, I just left. I'm so much happier now. I'm down 35 pounds, my mental space is clearer. And I'm with a man who has basic hygiene and cleans without having to have a crying meltdown to get him to do just one load of dishes. You already know the answer. You're done. And that's okay. It's a good thing you realize now instead of when you're 50 and can't leave. You only get one life. Choose yourself and your happiness. Comment 2. Stop cutting this man's gross-ass toenails. What the frick? Girl, please get some self-respect and break things off. He can barely shower, he smells, and he is at low effort. Instead of cutting his toenails, you should be cutting this man out of your life. And for the love of Shakespeare, lose weight, losing my cool. Losing, sorry, I had to. Now for the update. Thanks for all the feedback on my last post. So, this past week has been pretty up and down. After reading everyone's advice, I decided to have another serious talk with my husband. I sat him down and tried to explain how his hygiene and overall appearance were affecting me and our relationship. I was honest but gentle, hoping he would understand the gravity of the situation. He seemed to listen, but I could tell he was hurt. He promised to try harder, but I wasn't sure if he really meant it or if he was just saying what I wanted to hear. A few days later, I noticed he was making an effort. He showered more frequently and even trimmed his toenails without me having to nag him. It was a small victory, but it gave me a glimmer of hope. However, the hair was still an issue. It was still greasy and unkempt, and I couldn't bring myself to touch it. I decided to take a risk and suggested we go to a professional stylist together. I framed it as a fun date idea, hoping he would be more open to it. To my surprise, he agreed. We booked an appointment for the weekend, and I could see he was nervous but willing to give it a shot. When we arrived at the salon, the stylist took one look at his hair and immediately knew what to do. She explained that his hair needed a deep cleanse and a proper cut to bring out its natural texture. My husband was hesitant, but after some encouragement, he agreed to let her work her magic. The transformation was incredible. His hair went from a greasy mop to a stylish, manageable look that suited him perfectly. He looked in the mirror and couldn't believe the difference. I could see a spark of confidence in his eyes that had been missing for a long time. It was like he was seeing himself in a new light, and I felt a surge of hope for our relationship. But the real test came when we got home. Would he maintain this new look, or would he revert to his old habits? I decided to give him space and see what happened. Over the next few days, he continued to shower regularly and took care of his hair. It was a huge relief, but I knew we still had a long way to go. One evening, we were sitting on the couch, and he turned to me with a serious look on his face. He admitted that he had been feeling depressed and unmotivated for a while, which was why he had let himself go. He said he didn't realize how much it was affecting me and our relationship. Hearing this broke my heart, but it also made me realize that there was more to his behavior than just laziness or stubbornness. We decided to seek help together. We found a therapist who specialized in couples counseling and booked our first session. It was a tough decision, but we both knew it was necessary if we wanted to save our marriage. The therapist helped us communicate better and understand each other's needs and feelings. It was a slow process, but we started to make progress. During one of our sessions, my husband opened up about his childhood. He revealed that his parents had always been critical of his appearance and hygiene, which made him rebel against their expectations. This was a huge revelation for me, and it helped me understand why he was so resistant to change. It also made me realize that I needed to be more supportive and less critical if I wanted to help him grow. As we continued therapy, we started to reconnect on a deeper level. We began to plan more dates and spend quality time together. I could see him making an effort to be more spontaneous and energetic, and I tried to be more patient and understanding. It wasn't easy, but we were both committed to making it work. One night, we were lying in bed, and he turned to me with a smile. He said he felt like he was finally becoming the man he wanted to be, and he thanked me for not giving up on him. It was a moment of pure joy and relief, and I felt a renewed sense of love and hope for our future. Looking back, I realized that this journey has been about more than just hair or hygiene. It's been about understanding each other, supporting each other, and growing together. We still have a long way to go, but I feel more confident than ever that we can make it through anything as long as we have each other. Thanks for reading. Aita for telling my cheating wife to tell everyone about her infidelity. After reading your comments, I decided to meet with Kate, but not read the email. Kate came to the house yesterday, and when I opened the door, she looked terrible. She tried to hug me and started mumbling apologies, but I stopped her and we sat down to talk. I started by telling Kate that I would be recording the audio of the conversation, and she agreed. I then asked her to explain what happened and told her that I haven't read the email she sent. Kate said she had been at the bar with two friends, I know, and liked both of them, and told me what she had to drink. I was surprised at how little she drank because it was the same amount we would normally drink when going for dinner, a few glasses of wine and a cocktail. She admitted she was only slightly tipsy. One of her friends, Sarah, has a younger brother, Max, 27-year-old male, who came to pick them up around midnight. It's a running joke in their group that Max has had a major crush on Kate since high school, and I had heard them joke about this. The four of them went to get some food, and Max then dropped each one off until it was just him and Kate. Kate said she didn't want him to drive the 20 minutes to her parents' place after working all day, so would just order an Uber from his apartment. She went into his apartment to order the Uber, but couldn't get one. Max suggested She should crash in his bed and he would take the sofa. He would then drop her off in the morning. Kate refused and continued to try to find an Uber. They were sitting on Max's bed and he kissed her. She kissed him back and they ended up having intimacy. She confirmed again that it was consensual. After that, she broke down crying from guilt and Max took her home. She cried for another hour, then tried to call me to tell me what she had done. We had to stop a number of times because Kate kept breaking down and crying hysterically. She told me it was a huge mistake. She got caught up in the moment. It was terrible. She only loves me, blah, blah, blah. After she was done, I told her that her story didn't make sense. But it didn't matter at this stage because I was done. This caused another breakdown. I told her I was going to continue with the divorce preparations. But for the next month, we would be separated with no contact. I also told her that we would both remain faithful, would get a full sexually transmitted disease panel, and she would tell our mutual friends and family what happened. If she sticks to these conditions, I would be willing to meet again to see if there was any way forward other than divorce. She enthusiastically agreed to this, but made it clear that she did not expect me to stay faithful to her. I know many of you will criticize this decision, but I need to be sure that divorce is the right option after I have had time to process everything that has happened. I am still 99% sure that is where we are heading, but I need to be 100% certain. To add, just to clarify, because many of you seem to be focusing on this point, I've had mutual friends in my wife's family send me nasty messages, turn up at my house, etc. Because according to Kate, I kicked her out over an argument. My request was that Kate tells them it's because she has been unfaithful, not a full rundown of everything that happened. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Consider it this way. If she told you the truth, she consciously cheated on you. It took zero convincing. She knew what she was doing. Is that going to be something you can get over? And is it even something you want to get over? You'll just be sending a message that she can get away with it if she's sorry enough. The other side to this is if she lied to you. Lying on top of cheating isn't something to work through. Read the email to see if that even matches what she told you. I'll be honest with you here. Divorce is the right move. I understand that you have to be sure, and I understand it isn't a small decision. But you do need to remember that you set a hard boundary on cheating. There isn't any nuance. She cheated. Comment 2. Her story is full of nonsense. Like, if she was trying to find an Uber home, how did they end up on his bed exactly? Gee, maybe there's better signal in the bedroom. Have a seat right here and see if your phone works. O_0. But also, a 20-minute drive was too much? Why not just Uber direct from the bar? Did she not realize at that moment how far it was? She knew what she was doing. She wanted it. May have for quite some time, but then was immediately regretful. This isn't actual contrition. Her story is nonsense. She is still lying to you or trickle-truthing you. Now for the update. Thanks for all the comments from my last post. After reading your comments, I decided to meet with Kate, but not read the email. Kate came to the house yesterday, and when I opened the door, she looked terrible. She tried to hug me and started mumbling apologies, but I stopped her and we sat down to talk. I started by telling Kate that I would be recording the audio of the conversation, and she agreed. I then asked her to explain what happened and told her that I haven't read the email she sent. Kate said she had been at the bar with 2 friends I know and like both of them, and told me what she had to drink. I was surprised at how little she drank, because it was the same amount we would normally drink when going for dinner. A few glasses of wine and a cocktail. She admitted she was only slightly tipsy. One of her friends, Sarah, has a younger brother, Max, 27-year-old male, who came to pick them up around midnight. It's a running joke in their group that Max has had a major crush on Kate since high school. And I had heard them joke about this. The 4 of them went to get some food, and Max then dropped each one off until it was just him and Kate. Kate said she didn't want him to drive the 20 minutes to her parents' place after working all day, so would just order an Uber from his apartment. She went into his apartment to order the Uber, but couldn't get one. Max suggested she should crash in his bed and he would take the sofa. He would then drop her off in the morning. Kate refused and continued to try to find an Uber. They were sitting on Max's bed and he kissed her. She kissed him back and they ended up having intimacy. She confirmed again that it was consensual. After that, she broke down, crying from guilt, and Max took her home. She cried for another hour, then tried to call me to tell me what she had done. We had to stop a number of times because Kate kept breaking down and crying hysterically. She told me it was a huge mistake. She got caught up in the moment. It was terrible. She only loves me, blah, blah, blah. After she was done, I told her that her story didn't make sense, but it didn't matter at this stage because I was done. This caused another breakdown. I told her I was going to continue with the divorce preparations, but for the next month, we would be separated with no contact. I also told her that we would both remain faithful, would get a full sexually transmitted disease panel, and she would tell our mutual friends and family what happened. If she sticks to these conditions, I would be willing to meet again to see if there was any way forward other than divorce. She enthusiastically agreed to this, but made it clear that she did not expect me to stay faithful to her. I know many of you will criticize this decision, but I need to be sure that divorce is the right option after I have had time to process everything that has happened. I am still 99% sure that is where we are heading, but I need to be 100% certain. To add, just to clarify, because many of you seem to be focusing on this point, I've had mutual friends and my wife's family send me nasty messages, turn up at my house, etc. Because according to Kate, I kicked her out over an argument. My request was that Kate tells them it's because she has been unfaithful, not a full rundown of everything that happened. After Kate left, I felt a mix of anger and sadness. I couldn't believe she had betrayed me like this. I spent the next few days trying to process everything. I talked to a few close friends about what had happened, and they were all supportive. They agreed that I needed to take some time to figure out what I wanted to do. A few days later, I received a call from Kate's mother. She was furious and accused me of ruining Kate's life. She said that Kate had been crying non-stop and that I needed to take her back. I tried to explain that Kate had been unfaithful, but she wouldn't listen. She hung up on me, and I felt even more isolated. The next day, I received a message from one of our mutual friends. She said that Kate had told her everything and that she was sorry for what had happened. She said that she understood if I wanted to end things, but that she hoped I would give Kate another chance. I appreciated her support, but I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do. A few days later, I received a call from Max. He apologized for what had happened and said that he had no idea that Kate was married. He said that he had been drunk and that he regretted everything. I didn't know what to say to him. I was still so angry and hurt. I decided to take a few days off work to clear my head. I went to stay with a friend in another city and tried to relax. It was hard to stop thinking about everything that had happened, but I knew I needed to take some time for myself. When I returned home, I received a message from Kate. She said that she had been thinking a lot about what had happened and that she wanted to meet him to talk. I agreed to meet her, but I was still unsure about what I wanted to do. We met at a coffee shop, and she looked even worse than before. She apologized again and said that she had made a huge mistake. She said that she loved me and that she wanted to make things right. I told her that I needed more time to think and that I wasn't sure if I could ever trust her again. Over the next few days, I continued to receive messages from friends and family. Some were supportive, others were angry. It was hard to know who to trust and who to talk to. I felt so alone. A week after our initial conversation, I received a call from my lawyer. He said that Kate had filed for the divorce. I was shocked. I thought we were going to try to work things out, but it seemed like she had already made up her mind. I felt a mix of relief and sadness. I knew that our marriage was over, but it was still hard to accept. Looking back, I realized that there were signs that things weren't right between us. Kate had been distant for a while, and I had been too busy with work to notice. I wish I had paid more attention, but it's too late now. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.